Throughout history, our pursuit of productivity has evolved. From the agricultural revolution to the industrial age. And now, at the dawn of the AI revolution, we need a new synergy between humans and machines. Champions who can train machines to enhance our productivity. Champions who can teach machines to draw and create. Champions who can guide machines to code. Champions who can co-write essays and news articles, all while upholding ethics and human rights. True champions are what we need. Welcome to Prompt Champions.
Welcome to the second episode of the Prompt Champions podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce a very special guest. Joining us is Ajay Cyril, the winner of the Global Prompt Engineering Championship in the code category, who is also an accomplished product manager. This prestigious competition was organized by the Dubai Future Foundation and the Dubai Center for Artificial Intelligence, drawing thousands of participants from around the world. With 3 winners across 3 different categories and a combined prize of $272,000, securing a victory was no small feat. I delve into not only the competition but also the broader impact of AI on his profession. Ajay isn't just any product manager, he's a hands-on innovator with a knack of turning ideas into reality. In this episode, we'll explore the transformative role of Gen AI on product management and software development. Ajay will also share how he uses AI to bring his concepts to life as functional prototypes. We're going to see a live demo of turning prompts into software products. So let's dive in and gain insights from Ajay on Gen AI, the future of product management, and some valuable advice for aspiring software developers. If you like this episode, don't forget to click like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more of such content. Hi Ajay, good morning. Welcome to the Prompt Champions podcast. And you are my second guest actually, so I'm trying to bring in all the best prompt champions out there. And we had Megan on the first episode, who was one of the winners of the Prompt Championships, and then you are my second guest. So happy to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Biju. I mean, it's my pleasure joining you and talking about my journey in the Prompt Engineering Championship. So absolute pleasure to be here.
Okay, cool. So let's kickstart. And the first question is, how did you feel after you won the Prompt Engineering Championship?
So, I mean, it was amazing, but I mean, it was a series of surprises, right? I obviously first never expected to even qualify for the top 10, etc. So, I mean, I was pretty out of place. I'm a business guy. I'm a product guy. I don't do hands-on development on a day-to-day basis. You know, I just know enough to talk to my engineers. So, I mean, every day, every round, or anytime my code ran, I was extremely happy, right, that I got to this stage. And so when I eventually won it, I mean, after day 1, when I made it to top 3, that itself was a victory for me that I got this far. But then the finals was more on Python, data analysis. So wasn't so much technical, but more understanding the business problem statement, framing it right, etc. So it just worked out. So it's a series of things.
It hit the right spots for you then.
Yes, it's just I mean, so I'm grateful. I'm lucky. I know I'm not the best prompt engineer, not even close, right? But that's the power of AI. It shows that a normal person who continuously tries can at least bring out some output which is useful to the world.
Cool. So to understand what perhaps contributed to the you winning the championship, maybe we would like to understand your background and like perhaps a little bit about you as a person and also about your profession.
Sure.
And perhaps whatever contributed
absolutely
to this success.
So Biju, I'm someone who's always deeply been interested in technology. I'm a hands-on builder in most cases. So I did my undergraduation in electronics and communications, and then I went to IIM Kozhikode right after my engineering. Right. So I had an interest in coding per se, in software. During my undergrad, a lot of my friends and batchmates have done really well in top global companies doing software, so I stay in touch. I see what they do, the way they think. But post MBA, my journey has mostly been on the product side, where my charter generally has been to convert the latest in technology into meaningful products and services. So I've worked in hardware, I've worked in IoT, video, and so most of these, as you know, are not easy. It's not as easy as software, because a hardware has a 1 year life cycle from an idea to becoming a product, right? So I have
Yeah.
been on this hard product journeys where you design a wearable and someone doesn't like one angle of it and the whole product can fail. So I've learned to think from a consumer or the end user point of view. And once the LLM started coming about, software capabilities started to evolve. I was someone who was always very hands on. I used to try out all the latest models, the capabilities, stay up to date with news, other influencers, etc. So I was always knew what it's capable of and what's possible. So once the competition began, I think I was on par with most of the other competitors on the technical point of view. But what really helped was this end user or a product mindset, where, for example, the weather app or whatever app they asked us to build, a lot of the people participating would build the app and be happy with it, the developers. But since I'm a product guy, I would try to make it a little better, make it look nice. The interaction should be nice. Let's add a slight bit of animation. Let's add material design or color themes. So because we are product people, we know that even if it works technically, if the user
Yeah.
doesn't like the buttons curvature, he may not use the app.
Yeah.
So once I did some of these things, I could see that okay, the judges are actually visually looking at the output and also looking at the code. So while the code may be at parity, if the output looks a little better, performs a little better, there's a little bit of error validation. These were differentiators that helped me sort of stand out from the other very talented people who were in the competition as well.
Yeah, so for the viewers who don't know, IIM Kozhikode is perhaps one of the premier management
Yeah,
institutes in
it is, I
India.
think, in the top three B schools in the country right now. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's for the context of viewers. And then if I talk more about the prompt championship itself, like I got a lot of details from Megan, but she also participated in a different category than you. So your
Yes.
category was code or
Code. So it was
yeah.
coding. So I can probably walk you through what it was in the selection rounds, right? So initially, when it was open globally before the top 10, it was basically a Python problem, like a sales forecasting. I don't remember the exact problem, but it was to generate Python code to solve a business problem. And the only caveat was it has to be completely, the output has to be from an LLM. You cannot fine tune the output outside. So all your creativity has to go into the prompt and not into the output, because if it's output, it's essentially just another coding
Yeah.
competence. Now, all code are essentially similar, right? You if you have an output that you want to get to, everyone's code would be similar. But I believe they judged on things like complexity, which means how much resources the code took to run, and even the time it took to run. So efficiency, I think, was one of the parameters in the initial rounds, that your code has to be efficient, because you can generate hard coded output as well, saying here
Yeah.
generate this. But I think this is how they judged. So there were about 10,000 or so participants in the coding round, out of which 10 were called on site to Dubai, a very talented bunch of people and a good mix, right? In the coding round, most of them were developers, but some were PhD researchers into AI, some were very young kids just out of college. So it was a good mix in the top 10 round. In the top 10 round, we had a series of 10-minute challenges, which was, they would give us a coding problem and we had 10 minutes to generate the output. Now, I know the media article which came out in Times of India, etc., just focused on one, which was making the weather app, right? But that was just one,
Yeah.
because that's the easiest example I could give to the reporter to make him understand what it was. But essentially, over the 10 minutes round, they covered, the languages covered were React. They made us do a website. So we had CSS, HTML. Obviously, JavaScript had there. And in the final, there was Python, right? So it covered a whole breadth of stacks, which again worked to my advantage, because I am not someone committed to one stack, because I'm not a developer, right? So some developers who are really good at, say, web stack did not really do well in the React stack. But since I was a business person, it was all the same to me.
Yeah.
And the challenges ranged from building React apps to websites to tools like a task scheduler and a bunch of such just customer focused things. So knowledge of how these things behaved in real life also help. So if you don't
Okay.
know, for example, if you use Todoist or some other task scheduling app, there are some nuances to the app. It may seem obvious, add a task, remove a task, but then swiping, strike through. There are a lot of subtle things that we as product people know, or UI UX people know, that this is what customers like. So I could bring in some of these components into my prompts. And then ChatGPT, I mean, we used a variety of models. We used Granite by IBM, which was the base model. Then I used ChatGPT to sort of enhance and correct the code there, and then just run it in an online emulator. So this was the journey, and in the final was a series of Python prompts as well.
Okay.
So
Were you allowed to chain prompts, or were you allowed to bring in a prompt library?
so we were given clean installs of each of the LLMs. No, we could not bring in. The key thing there was, Biju, I was picking up from all the participants, right? Someone would say, "Hey, React emulator, this Replit is better than Snack or something,"
Yeah.
right? So because there are people there, you constantly hear and try to learn and
Mhm.
also experiment, right? Or you're practicing for the tournament, and probably using an emulator where external dependencies are not required will work better in 10 minutes than a full-sized emulator where there will be installations and Python code running. So it
Yeah.
was more what worked for the tournament, what is optimized for that time format. This is what worked, right?
Okay.
And
So
what
the
also,
emulators were also there. Like that would have been my next question. So because
yeah,
what I see with Anthropic now, Cloud A, like
yes,
that
yes,
that emulator on the right side is making a ton of difference. Like everyone's
yes, yes,
immediately getting results on the right side, and
yeah.
I even wonder how they made it happen. Like what is, because this emulator seems to be multi-purpose, right? It can render
Yeah,
React apps
I
and
think it is.
dashboards.
See, something like a Replit or a Snack. It is basically what? How many? It will be an HTML, CSS, or a React or Java. I mean, it's like a combination of 5 things. So I've been playing around with those artifacts as well, and
Yeah.
they've brought all of this together into one little emulator, it built into cloud.
Yeah.
So very interesting. So it was something similar, except when 3 months ago when we did it, this wasn't there. So
Mhm.
we were, I mean, they would in the prompt they would say, hey, if you don't know which emulator, try Replit or try Snack Expo for React, right?
Yeah.
But the key thing was, the base language LLM we used was Granite, but since things evolved so fast, ChatGPT 4.0 had just come out. I think it had just come out on the day of the finals, and I had updated my OpenAI subscription to get it. And once the larger or the best LLM is used, it sort of overpowers by magnitude, an order of magnitude, the previous models. So
Yeah.
I didn't need to struggle with Granite because that was a 7 billion model. Now this is whatever, like 500
Yeah.
billion or whatever ChatGPT is on. And so I could convert output from one LLM, put it in the other, say fix this, and it could very rapidly see which libraries were incorrect, which parameters have changed. So I could bring that output because of the capabilities of the LLM that was used at the time.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, it's a bit different than what I heard from Megan, because they had more creative freedom. Like they could just
Yes,
use any tools, and they were not
absolutely.
very restricted. But in your case, it looks like there was some technical, let's say, restrictions in the sense of to establish parity among all the participants. So
Yes, yes, yes.
quite interesting difference, because I was imagining maybe you also had all that creative freedom to
No,
deploy any tool.
we
And
did
yeah.
have, for example, when one of the challenges was build a tourism website for Dubai tourism, something like this, right? So
Yeah.
this is super open ended. The information is all there. It's more of layout and interactions and things like that, right? So this help. I mean, so here all you would do is, hey, lay it out like this: single page, parallax scrolling, smooth, this, that, material design, rounded elements. So it's fully designed,
Yeah.
except convincing, getting the output you want from the LLM, because the way the LLMs are, at least the last generation of LLMs, not 4.0 or Llama 3.1, the ones which just came out last, they would, because they're scraped from the internet, they would obviously, if you say, hey, make this scroll to the right, it would give you the code, but then it would reference a library which is not there in your environment, right? It
Yeah.
would call a Snack navigation or a React navigation library. And then if you don't really understand what this output is, you would never know why this code is failing, right? Because it's
Yeah.
calling a library which is not there. So it took some time for me to to explain to the LLM that, hey, I don't want external libraries, only core components, so that I don't need to call import another library. So that was the part which took some time, in that 10 minutes. I think
Yeah.
writing the prompt and getting the output is a couple of minutes thing, but polishing it and getting it to work is where we all took some time.
Yeah, I would have a lot of pressure if I have 10 minutes to do something. So,
Yeah, the problem is writing the prompt and output and getting it to run. If it runs first time, you're good, right? Because then
yeah,
you're iteratively doing, your V1 worked. And then you save that, you try to add functionality without breaking your first code. But if it doesn't run, then, and unless you know exactly what that line 173, which is failing,
yeah.
you go into a loop with the LLM. You say, fix this, it fixes that, but break something else. So that was essentially lucky that it didn't happen for me, but I saw a lot of other contestants struggling with that because they don't
Yeah.
understand why that particular line wasn't working.
Cool. And I think that's a good segue into the aspect of how are these technologies affecting your real life, for example. So maybe on a
Right.
personal level, also if you are leading a team, I'm not sure, are you leading a
Yes.
team? Then
Yes, I'm
you could
leading a
also,
project. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So because I have done a survey in the teams I work with, like developers who have access to, let's say, a co-pilot, and
Right.
it's a 50-50 there. Like, so
Right.
it's actually a 40-60 where 40 say there is some change in their workflows, but 60% are saying like, no, it's just like a nice to have thing. Like
Right.
it's not making solid impact on their
Right.
work. So how do
Right.
you see, like, first of all, like what's the impact on your work in
Right.
day-to-day work? And then,
Yes.
or how do you see it in the teams that you work?
Yeah, so I actually see it a bit differently, right? My perspective on this is, if you have like a proper development team, right? You have a full stack, like 10 top coders in a small pod focused on one retention feature, right? I don't think generative AI will make a substantial difference because these guys are the best in class, right? They don't need help from a generative AI to generate code, right? So that's fair, and that's what the 50% of your, when you did the survey, that's what the top coders will say. I don't
Yeah.
need it. I know how to do it, right? But where I have seen value is if there's one developer or if there's one business guy, right? I'm a business guy. I want to run up a data analysis script, right? I have some data coming. I want to do some slicing, dicing, and show it, right? Typically, a few months ago, I would need a BI analyst or someone who understands data manipulation to do this, right? I think the value is more in empowering more. I mean, sort of, instead of specialized people doing one thing, you have a business guy who can do 10 things, right?
Mhm.
A business guy, doesn't need a business analyst anymore. I don't need a copywriter anymore. I don't need even to spin up small demos. I don't need a developer's time anymore. So the people who are experts, the valued resources, can focus on their task and delivery, which is fine. But I think Gen AI has allowed us, especially in our company, for each horizontal person to do much more, right?
Okay.
I don't need, I mean, so the whole discipline of product management is now evolving. You are not someone writing PRDs or
Yeah.
requirements. You are saying, hey, here I built up something, my code runs like this. Now based on this is, why don't you improve it? So I
Yeah.
see enhancing capability and productivity of individuals much more than experts. So experts continue on their path, but the people below experts, the generalists, now have much more capability and support to improve their level of output. And I see
Yeah.
that's where I see a lot of value being added in my company.
Okay, that's very similar to also what Megan said about her work. Like,
Right,
so initially she would develop a concept in her head and then she would have to translate it to a
right,
artist. Right now, she can just visualize it or create the visuals on her own. And it's very similar to what you're saying is like in the
absolutely,
past, you had to translate all these things to people like
yeah.
specialists who would then work on it. Now you already deliver the prototype.
It's actually similar to what you mentioned earlier about solopreneurs. It is the same thing, right? Earlier, you
Yeah.
needed like a 5, 10 minimum, group of people to start something, a website or a blog or anything. Now, there are single people companies out there, right? Where people
Yeah.
have built a small product, it has value, and you as one person can run the entire stack. And I think this is what will happen increasingly in enterprises as well. You don't need big departments to get a certain level of output.
Yeah.
You can empower people with the right tools. Give me a GitHub Copilot, or for coding, or data analysis, and you will see that the business people are now much more capable to run a financial analysis, create wireframes for the best product, design best standards. So you'll see one guy do much more and be upskilled in many more domains than than one little niche area.
Okay, and what changes in terms of expectations because of that? Like, do people expect you to deliver faster or better? What is the expectation?
So one thing which I'm noticing in product, especially, so when I was in Airtel, and for example, we had a music app, or we had a video streaming app, or advertising app. So earlier there were, I think, the number of people required to deliver on a certain product will reduce drastically, right? You don't need I mean, the post COVID era of hyper funding led to product managers for a button saying this guy
Yeah.
works on this little thing and he optimizes that, right?
Yeah.
You will increasingly see that going away. I think in enterprises, numbers, metrics, and P&L will matter more. So you will have this merging of, I mean, we had an era of product managers not connected to business output. They would say,
Yeah.
hey, my key metrics are retention or whatever product metrics, but P&L is businesses, right? You will see this converging. You will see business people increasingly getting into product, and they say, hey, I understand what my business needs. I also now understand a bit of how this works and how my users need it. So I can write some of the specs, right? Because I will upskill myself. And you will see product guys say, hey, I understand users and the product. Maybe I can also do some of business, or I mean, commercial and customer analysis, cohorts. So I see a mixing of product and business happening. Single source, single threaded leaders where
Mhm.
they're responsible for the success of this product, both technically from a user point of view as well as commercially. So I see a lot of this happening.
Okay.
I see some layoffs and some headcount adjustments happening because of this, and this is where a lot of if you are not delivering code directly and if you're not responsible for a P&L, I see a high risk on that headcount, because essentially someone can upskill and say, instead of you managing one feature, this guy will manage 5 features,
Yeah.
rendering 4 guys a little uncertain in the job. So I
Yeah.
see that happening a lot due to AI.
So it's a must now for product managers to like upskill and use AI in their workflows, is how I
I,
hear
I
it.
mean, I think it's not necessarily AI, but do more, right?
Do more.
You have to expand beyond your traditional definitions of your role, and evolve beyond product metrics to commercial metrics as well. Because eventually, now companies, there is a focus on P&L, there is a focus on bottom line. So I think there is a natural evolution that should happen where, people should be focused more on the business outcomes than just the product outcomes.
Cool. Yeah. So can we see some of your magic now? Maybe like is
Yeah,
it
yeah. I
possible?
mean, I was actually playing around with. I mean, let me. I don't know how to show you. Can this share screen? Share. Group. I'll try to share my entire screen. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so I was actually trying to. I mean, I'll show you something I built recently, and then we'll show the process of building it as well. So
Yeah.
now I was trying to. Sorry, not this one. So, for example, on LinkedIn, I was seeing a bunch of, especially related to AI, a bunch of complex comments, right, saying deep technical stuff which even I don't understand. So I was thinking, is there a way to put stuff into ChatGPT from LinkedIn and see if it helps us, right? So let's see, maybe it's a big post, right? So I have no idea what this is. So I built a small plugin like this where it's called LinkedIn AI or whatever. I can select a bunch of text. I just do simplify. So what
Wow.
it does is it takes this text, puts it into ChatGPT, and sort of summarizes, right? So I can now know, oh, okay, this is what this particular post is about, right? And it also has things like I can research more. I can even create a reply. So I mean, I don't encourage AI generated replies, but you can see
Yeah.
that it's a connector that I built between LinkedIn text to a plugin, right?
Yeah.
Now, the interesting part here is I want to show you the prompt part, right, of the journey to get here. So let me see if this loads. Yeah, this is a huge series of. So I mean, from a purely, I have no idea how a Chrome plugin works, right? I had no
Mhm.
idea what the org structure, or I mean, what the folder structure, etc., would be. So I start here with 4.0 saying, hey, I want a bunch of this is the outcome I want, right? And now it will tell me. So ChatGPT parsed the requirements, it parsed the features, it showed me the exact folder structure, the exact code that is needed, and then it's a series of iterations with ChatGPT saying, hey, how do I install it? How do I, this part is not working well, the UI is not working well, and there is a error that is coming that is blocked by. So it's just a journey where you, whatever outcome you need, you go outcome first. I want this. How do I build this? And then talk to the LLM in order to get to that stage. So this is
Wow.
just a small example of what I could build. For example, I can actually show you the code if it's open here. Right. So the this is the code. This is the structure, and there is an API call happening here to Chat GPT. Now,
Yeah.
typically this would be a complex code because you're sending some parameters, you're getting something back. But I could just tell ChatGPT, hey, I don't know. Here's my API key. Can you do it? And it would write. So it generated like about what, 8 different files. It's a combination of HTML, JavaScript, JSONs, etc. And I could do an end-to-end Chrome plugin in about a couple of hours, and to
Wow.
get to behave exactly like I want. So
Yeah, it
that's
looks cool. Yeah.
yeah, that's one example of something I did last night. And then I was also going through some React codes. Just a second, I'll show you where I ran that. So these are typically some of the errors that would come up. But I was trying to yeah. So this is Replit. So basically, I got a Claude artifact, right? I got a reference of someone doing a 3D cube falling.
Hmm.
Right? So what I could do is I could put it into ChatGPT and say, hey, I found this code. Can you, and then you can customize it. It's basically almost like a game, right? It's a 3D cube. So let me run it 1 second here. So it should run here. So it's just, this is it, and I can sort of control this cube left and right,
Yeah.
and it's like a physics simulation of almost a video game, right? I can make it
Wow.
fall, have some
Yeah.
platforms, and I'm controlling it, right?
Yeah.
So it's essentially pulled to codes to manipulate 3D objects, which is open source. And then essentially this is an example of how you can create, so this could be anything. This could be a video game, this could be some artifacts for designs, infographics. So something like this, I wrote none of this code, right? I
Yeah.
showed Claude, hey, I want to do something like this. Can you write the code? And it did. I put it in Chat GPT, said, hey, I want to customize, change colors, change rules, and it works. So
Yeah.
this is again another completely different example of what I can use, LLMs for.
Yeah. So very soon, I think you'll be a solopreneur because even that LinkedIn plugin is like could be monetized in a way. Like if
Exactly. So this is
yeah.
the type of things I've been playing around with. I think there was one more I wanted to show you. Let me see the snake one. Yeah, see this. Let me see if it runs. So this is again a code I found where it's a snake game essentially, but it's AI run, right? So it's just I asked it to. I mean, I got the example of this game from a blog post. I said, can we build something similar? And it's essentially a snake game, and you can sort of control the AI speed. So and also the speed, and it's essentially like figuring out itself and growing longer, and sometimes it makes mistakes, right? So
Yeah.
even a game like this is easy to build. This is completely inside React, is running inside an emulator, and it will continue to run. So
Cool.
there's an
Yeah.
element of chance here. Sometimes it turns into itself because otherwise it's just a perfect game, right?
Yeah.
So this is another example of and a different type of output in addition to say art or literature. But from
Yeah.
a coding point of view, we saw plugins, we saw 3D manipulation, games, React apps. All of this is possible, without really writing a line of code yourself.
Yeah, and I've worked with a team where they use like AI a lot for gathering requirements, which
Right.
has been massive change for them. So like, just interviewing people, then having the summaries. I mean, that has brought their like work from 5 days to half a day.
Oh, absolutely. I think this Teams has now Copilot. So now features like you join late and say summarize what happened in the last 15 minutes or take meeting notes, etc. It's just no-brainer, simple applications which will dramatically increase productivity, in the enterprise. If someone can
Yeah,
just take track of, just keep track of meeting notes and follow up with people, hey, you promised to deliver this. I think that's 80% of what we do in corporate.
yeah, but they used a specialized tool to collect
Right,
interviews in the past.
right,
So
right,
the tool was already there, but
right,
then the tool incorporated some, like these AI features like
right.
summarization, and each interview can be like is a context. So you can
Right.
chat with that interview now and ask,
Oh,
okay, what
absolutely.
were the top 5 features that the user requested?
Right.
and then like you can even like chat with the interview set on a higher level, like so like
Right.
it's just massively changed their requirement gathering
I
process.
mean, something that we are using it for, Biju, I mean, this is in the process of development, and many companies already do it. Is I have a product where customers complain to my call center agents, right? And it's very difficult for me. I mean, in the traditional way, I needed to do surveys to know, are my customers happy? It happens every 6 months. It's a sample based one. I never know, right? But if now what we're thinking is there's a simple AI listener listening to all the conversations of all agents with all customers, right? It's a full survey, multilingual. It can listen in Arabic, it can listen in English. Some people talk in Urdu, and it can translate seamlessly. And then the next day, I can just ask across my 10,000 conversations, hey, what's the biggest problem, top three problems my customers are facing? And it can extract that insight. Now, doing this earlier would have taken a
Yeah.
whole business insight team, but now we can, and that's essentially the power of AI. So, I mean, now there is a trend on LinkedIn which is, hey, Gen AI is a bubble, and
Yeah.
it is counter narrative, right? Which is okay. A lot of companies have put a lot of capex in, but at an individual level, for us, it has enabled us to become much more productive, do things we could not do earlier. And I believe that itself adds a lot of value and sort of proves that the technology is here to stay. Whether investments, ROIs, that's a commercial question, and that will sort itself out.
Yeah, so that I'm like changing course a little bit, but
Yes,
based on
yes.
what you said, like demand management for me is a big challenge. Like now, because
Right,
now people know, hey, Ajay is he has these cool tools with him.
right,
Is there like a rush of demands which come to you, and then is there a qualification process, or maybe it's in your at an organization level? I
right.
would be very keen to understand if you
So,
have same challenges and how do you manage them?
yeah, so you see, at an organization level, when we look at AI, I still believe last year and even so far, it's just been the era of POCs, right? No one really, I mean, to really trust Gen AI with production data, with your consumer data, with your company's essentially wealth, which is data. I don't think companies are there yet fully, right? They're
Hmm.
still beginning to see. So you don't know if you, for example, if you're an oil drilling company and you put in all your historical data of how to find the oil wells or whatever production, and then this the LLM on whatever on an opaque basis recommends, hey, go drill here, commit like $1 billion and put a new well here. You don't know how this model worked. You don't know whether it's true. You don't
Yeah.
know whether, in case of internet connected LLMs like ChatGPT, you don't know whether it took your data to train itself and tomorrow your data is available for someone else. So it's still early in terms of AI safety, right? The capabilities are there, individuals can play around, but for enterprises, they have to be very, very, very careful, right? Their data cannot go out, and they cannot take decisions. You cannot take a bad management decision and justify to your board that, hey, AI recommended it, so it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So enterprises are still working on very early use cases, like you mentioned. Summarize a document, extract insights from my customer chats. These are all meaningful, but to extract it more and see, hey, what should be my strategy be? Out of one, two, three, which outcomes should I chase? Where should I commit resources? This still we are some distance away from AI is meaningfully using it. So I see use cases today more on automation. If there's a tedious task which is repetitive, very easy for AI to step in and automate. Bulk data processing, parsing. So if there is a bunch of data flowing in, for example, in IoT system, there's a lot of data flowing in, and to get an insights, hotspots, top three, bottom three. These again is very powerful for AI to do. But other more advanced use cases are still being worked upon, being fine tuned, and you will see it being applied. But I see mostly these sort of ragware type applications coming up right now in enterprises. Nothing beyond that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And so what does it mean for the general public? If you look at your profession now, and
Yes.
like would you have any advice for upcoming developers? Like do they need to change how they
Yeah. So
study, think, or yeah, work?
yes. So I have had some people reach out and say, hey, Do you have a course on prompt engineering? Is there some material I can refer to, etc.? And I mean, my response has been consistent that first of all, it is an overkill to call this engineering. Right? This is not engineering, right?
Yeah.
It's just a series of best practices, and that's it. Anyone can pick it up. And the field is evolving so fast. I mean, a year back we used to call it prompt engineering because LMs behaved in a peculiar way. They did not respond well to some commands. So there was a series of best practices people listed out saying, hey, I asked it this in this way and it gave an output. But now it's so much general purpose that prompt engineering, I mean, there is nothing called prompt engineering. Right? You are an expert in one domain. You know drug discovery the best, or you know coding the best. Now here's another tool. Just put your question in, or you're a finance professional, put your data in and see how it behaves. So there is, the only thing I tell people is start playing with it, with like non-confidential data. Don't put your company's databases inside ChatGPT yet, but start playing with it, and in each of your domains, see if it helps you. If you're a finance professional, I was just telling a friend yesterday, hey, if you have an Excel sheet, try putting it in ChatGPT and see what outcome it generates. So it's more enhance your expertise in your each of your areas and use this as a tool. Don't use this as another completely brand new area where you have to learn, get yourself certified, etc. I think all of this is just people trying to sell snake oil, same sort of thing. Just, it's all the free tools are there, resources are there. Keep trying it yourself and upskill. That's it. That's all I
Yeah, so the one thing I told one of the students is that now they need to learn how to find problems.
Yes.
This is one thing that is not taught in schools. Like
Right.
they immediately say, hey, look, here's how you code, here's the syntax, variables.
Right.
But for me now, the focus should be on teaching people how to find real life problems, and then the solution is much more easier, or
In
will
fact,
be.
when I talk to my top developers, right, they tell me the difference between, I mean, I'm not an expert, but they tell me that the lower level, the beginner developers who are just getting started, focus more on the syntax and the code and the rules, etc. But the really top developers are the ones thinking of the architecture. Is this the best way to solve the problem, right? And then the code is just an outcome.
Yeah.
So I think it evolves us to a higher level of problem solving. Like, okay, the code the LLM will write, but let me think, is this approach the best? Is this algorithm the best? Helps us do a sort of higher quality of work. And then the lower quality work, which is tedious, repetitive, writing code, cleanups, can be handed over to AI. So that's how I see our work lives evolving.
Okay. And so should like students who are pursuing engineering or computer science, whatever, should they learn to code very well, or should they just be average coders and then more of
No, I
problem
think
solvers?
coding was always about problem solving, right? If you see any of these global coding competition, it was always about problem solving. But now I think a lot of focus there was also memorization of this rule and that rule, and the best algorithm to do X, right? Now we have to realize even that is commoditized. I don't need you, a developer, to tell me if I have to do a sort or optimize or whatever shortest distance graph. All this is there in the LLM. I need you. Here's my business problem. My customer came and I want to convert him to a paying customer the fastest. Now you tell me, how do I take this data? How do I process this data? What analytics, what offer should I present him? Should I give him a discount? So these are not AI problems because this is multi-layered, right? AI cannot really solve, but you can use AI to attack each layer. But you as a problem solver have to tell me, okay, this is the way, present him this offer, give him 25% discount for this user, he may convert. Right? So this is the type of problems that will evolve. Instead of just technical challenges, it will evolve to more business level challenges where the developer also steps up and solves larger problems. This is what I believe.
Yeah, so I also feel like there are these foundational services, right? DNS or
yes,
networking services which have been engineered to have resiliency. I mean, those I don't think the LLMs are.
Yeah, I was actually, this is interesting because I was also wondering, beyond software, where do LLMs go, right? Software is, and I come from hardware background, and I was seeing there are now LLMs which are doing PCB design, right? So because it's again rule based, saying, hey, if you show it a million right layouts of PCBs, and now you tell you, hey, I want to develop a wearable, it can so I think the use cases are also now evolving beyond just text and code and art. And I was playing around with some video tools now. I mean, it's almost indistinguishable, the type of text to video that the Kling AI or a Sora
Yeah.
is generating. So I see LLMs, anything where a large amount of data can be used to tell whether this is right and wrong. I see LLMs being used there. So I was seeing hardware as well. You have to pack 4 or 5 PCBs together, some components on the PCB. You don't need an expert PCB designer, at least on the first level. Maybe there's an LLM which can help you do it. So I see it evolving beyond software, going into things like problem solving, drug discovery, math problems, and I see some value being generated. But again, led by the experts in each area. You cannot
Definitely.
hope to be a drug company without knowing
Yeah.
how compounds work, and LLM is just a tool. So I increasingly see experts in each area using AI as a tool in order to increase their productivity and reach levels that they could not previously.
Okay. And in the PCB example, was that a existing software augmenting its capabilities, or was it a completely new
So
product?
see, typically how I see it evolve in the industry is there is a large incumbent, someone like something like the global, the largest layout companies, and then there will be a small upstart, a bunch of researchers somewhere trying to solve a niche problem of layout of the components. Right. Once they prove the value enough, it's usually an acquisition where the larger company wants to integrate this feature into its software, and they acquire sort of this small company.
Yeah.
This is how I've seen the area emerge. So if you are a startup in such an area, I think the way to go is solve a small problem and then show a larger company that, hey, see, this your larger problem can be solved by using our solution. And this is how a lot of acquisitions in the AI startup space are happening.
Okay. So you see that there will be consolidation. That's
Oh,
how.
for example, I don't even understand how it makes sense to develop a general purpose LLM anymore, because all these big guys have spent
Yeah.
used up all the GPUs, spent billions. So other than if you're at a Facebook size company and you put out Llama for free, I don't see how any other company, without say, unless it's some government itself funding it, I don't see how you can build another model at this scale and compete. So the value will always be to build niche use cases based on your niche data. So, for example, in India we have UPI, which is the world's largest such national identity-based payment system. Now that's a ton of data. Now you can build an LLM on this data or on
Yeah.
Aadhaar data and have some unique use cases come out, right? So that's our power. That data is our power. So instead of building general purpose stuff, everyone should focus on the niche data that they have,
Yeah.
differentiate, and using AI some differentiated tools. This is the way
Yeah.
I
So
see it.
fine tune existing models to
Yeah, it's all
the raw
open source.
data. Yeah.
Use the techniques and build something of your own. Focus on, because general purpose, I think that market is gone. All the value is captured by the Max 7 or the big players.
Yeah, I know we are extending the length of the show, but
Yeah.
like, what happened to Falcon? Like, because when you remember, Falcon was a large language model from UAE, and at some point, it was one of the pioneers in
Right.
that space, open source, and now we don't hear about it. Have you any like a new news about it?
Yes, see, a lot of work in the LLM model space was research led, right? So at that point when Falcon was announced and there was JS, which was the Arabic language model, again these are capabilities that the companies are showing, not necessarily the output in itself, right? So a company like G42 or whoever made JS, they're saying, hey, see, now Arabic is now possible for us to freely interpret Arabic in any LLM. This capability exists, and we put out this model. But the true use of the model is when the company itself is using it in their own internal use cases or selling it as a service to their customers. So most models, announcements, etc., you see, which are not commercialized, is just an sort of a media statement, PR, in order to say the capability exists here. Now let us build something for you. So Falcon has taken the same journey. The capability exists. We were shown that okay, this is possible, and now they're using those capabilities to serve the nation and the companies here.
Cool. Yeah, I think that should be the motto of any technology company, right? So just
Right.
building
Yeah.
it for fun is not the idea,
Yeah,
but
I think the ROI is a big question
key
these
thing.
days for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, so final question, because we have to
Oh,
like also respect your time. Like, how do you keep up to date with all these fast-paced developments in the space? Like, is
so
there a routine that you follow?
No, so I have a bunch of the common newsletters and blogs that I try to keep up. But I also follow the big company events and announcements, because I see a lot of early stage stuff is announced there right
Yeah.
before. So when Google I/O, they will announce we will do this in Maps using AI, but it'll come 6 months later. You know that, okay, this is the direction in which this company is investing their money and resources in. So I find that big company events, especially developer events, not the consumer events. So when
Mm.
Nvidia does GTC or whatever their developer events are, I see a lot of early signals of where the technology is evolving. That's one. I read a lot of experts. I follow most of the people on LinkedIn who write on this, on Medium, on Substack, all these platforms. So just being curious, and then the only differentiator is if it's simple enough, unless it needs some big GPU, I try to run it myself. If there's
Okay.
a if there's a GitHub code, I try to run it, see how it performs, what the limitations are. Helps me keep up to speed and try to bring it. It's very so people ask, hey, AI, have you used it in your work? It's a big journey, to
Yeah.
know and making it meaningful. So I tried my best to see if I can use it in my day-to-day work, but I would say it's still like 1 or 2% only, because traditional business is running the way it is. It
Yeah.
still needs some time before it can use AI. So just the usual sources we need to keep track of AI developments.
Yeah. I like what you said, that curiosity is the main driver. Let's say that's,
This is it, and
yeah. That's,
not being afraid to be hands-on. So I'm not a developer. I'm not afraid if my code's subpar or I don't understand, but let me still put it out there. I built this, see if it's useful, take feedback. So I think this building in public solopreneur thing that has become now common, it's a good way of doing it. See, because you're not you are just, and then the community comes together to help you. So instead of the doubters and the critics, I see a lot more helpful people out there who can guide you on the journey. So I see there is value in putting out your work, just like you're doing. You're just starting, but you're putting this out. There'll be criticism, there'll
yeah.
be feedback, but we are, at least you're creating output, and I think that's the key thing. Let's
Yeah.
create, and
Ship it.
yeah. Let us
Yeah.
put it out there.
Cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I could keep talking to you for like hours, but like, I think we have to end the show now. And I found it super interesting. Like, I find you a very creative person. I think it's a combination of creativity, curiosity, and this hands-on mentality you keep mentioning. So, I think these are the success contributing factors to your success, if I may say
Thank
so.
you.
And
It was lovely talking to you as well.
yeah,
Very interesting. All the right topics. I could also keep speaking, but
yeah.
in the interest of keeping it concise.
Because I'm also a curious person. Like I could keep
Yes.
asking questions, which is a perhaps a bad habit. I don't know. That's part of the game. Okay, thanks a lot, and I will
Thank
not.
you, Vijay.
Thanks for like taking time out from your vacation. Actually, as I understand, you're on vacation. So yeah, super thankful, and I hope the viewers also find a lot of useful tips from this conversation.
I
So
hope so
thanks a
too.
lot, Ajay, and have a
Thank
nice
you.
day.
You
Yeah,
too. Bye.
bye.